Why the Tekken 7 story is lacking. Hello, people of all genders. Today I have decided to discuss about Tekken 7. Now, using a webcam and a face reveal is a big responsibility, but the topic of discussion is on a more personal level rather than default review. So, as you know, I'm going to talk about Tekken. Tekken 7, while being a great and engaging game, has its fair share of faults. And while many other reviews discuss topics like Lei Wulong not showing up in the game or a small campaign, I'm going to talk about things which are actually different and were not covered in depth in other reviews. But first, play Tekken 1 to 7 unless you want spoilers. Also, I would spoil from other franchises because it is a bad habit. Tekken series started as a typical revenge story when a kid gets wronged, uses the power of devil, black butler or something like that, and to save himself and Sid get revenge, but the sequel subverts that. Instead, the poor bastard we have been telling in the first Tekken games was the bad guy all along. In fact, the more as the series progressed, it appeared as the game creator Harada drew a mustache over the main character's face to make him look like a bad guy. Because Kazuya Mishima, the main character of the series, became cartoonishly evil after each segment of the Tekken series. And on the other end of the spectrum, we have another guy who has been pushed to the brink of being a hero. I'm not talking about Sasuke, I'm actually talking about Heihachi Mishima. You know, the guy that throws kids off the cliff, murders pregnant women, actually murders women, and kills families and experiments on people, impregnates women, and stuff like that. He's the main character of the series. Can you believe that? So the more I read into it, played the games, the more it seemed like this was like a propaganda. The author or the game creator is clearly biased, and it reminded me of Crest of Stars, a story which is essentially about an empire that imprisons people or acts cruel or something like that, and the author of the story made the empire the main characters and the good guys. And if you read the stories or watch the anime, it seems clear that the author is biased. The same thing appears to be here in this series. For example, Kazuya Mishima has been made to be a poster child of evil characters who cannot be redeemed, who is essentially evil, and who is not the main character of the series. It is like a sort of cheap plot twist or something like that. Except we did have a hint in the first game where his alternate costume was the devil, so it doesn't count as a cheap plot twist. But anyways, the more we played the game, the more it became apparent that that he was not the main character, and that Heihachi Mishima was the savior of the world, even though he was the bastard that started the entire mess. And he and his most of his kick the job moments were retconned entirely. As you see in the first story, he threw Kazuya off a ravine to see a proof whether he was powerful enough or not, and then Kazuya used the power of the devil to get out of there. But the story was retconned that it was essentially a witch trial, that he threw his own child to see whether he was evil or not. And in the fourth game, we learned that Nina Williams gets impregnated. I don't know by whom, but in the seventh game, it was retconned that the experiments they did not impregnated her, or the experiments didn't result to something like that. They just took her DNA and cloned. So it is cheap shots like that from the author that makes Heihachi kind of an angel, and it colors Kazuya as a bad character. It is almost like black journalism or yellow journalism or black file, something like that. The entire thing paints Kazuya as a bad guy, and it is done with such a force that it does not feel like a standard story. In fact, it is damaging the narrative immensely. It would have been much better if it was done with execution. Villain protagonists, if done well, could be great. A great example is Jaime Lannister from Games of Thrones. As we have seen, he is one of the most favorite characters in the series. Well, for many people. And the problem with the series is that we started with Kazuya, and most people who played the game sympathizes with him. Most people who play the game sees his suffering and his point of view, and even now there are many people that roots for him. I'm pretty much sure many people were pissed when they didn't get to play as him and kick Heihachi's ass in the seventh game, myself included, and the entire game felt forced, to be honest. In fact, most of the things done by Jin and Heihachi are blamed on Kazuya. The reporter whose family died, it was initially blamed on Jin, the guy we're supposed to root for in the story, who killed millions of people, started wars, kills millions of people, and acts like a jerk, kills billions of people, is Sasuke, but still kills billions of people, and he is the main character of the series. And however, the reporters' families were killed by Heihachi, and even after that, his support even tells that Kazuya is the main problem. Seriously, he looks like Devilman. That guy cannot be evil, right? I mean, Devilman was a good guy in his own series. And the more the series went, the more hard it wants you to think that Kazuya is evil, he's beyond redeemable, he's going to kill his allies, etc., etc. The comic book is even worse. The official comic books turns him into some missing missing genetics, something like that hits people at moment when he's upset or something like that. Jin seems to be a good hero, and he is an appropriate hero. I mean, there are not many emo heroes in anime culture, but Kazuya works better as a protagonist. We see his suffering, we see his rage, we want him to be the king of the Iron Fist. I mean, most people who saw through his backstory, this is just a guy who lost his mother, who is forced into becoming something he's not, and trying his best to get revenge or make do with the world. What if one day you woke up and suddenly realized that you were the Antichrist? What would you do? So his story is much more interesting than Jin, who is like blah blah, I must save the world, Naruto thing, whatever that is. Naruto is a great series, by the way, but I'm just saying, we have seen shows like this billions of times. We don't want to see another one of that. Would you really like this series if it was a standard anime story? This series is better for when it was Tekken 3 or Tekken 4 or something like that. but the more it went on, the more stale it got. And a best example to give about the topic about Kazuya is that I need to reference another story, which is Transtech. So basically, Transtech is a story where Autobots and Decepticons from the Transformers series never fought the war. They just do politics stuffs like what happens in my country or something like that. Politics, people killing other people, other things. So in Transtech story, there was a story called I Low Tech, in which there was a character who started out as a morally ambiguous normal person, and the more the series went, the more deranged and delusional he got, and he started killing people and things. But we see why, because he was captured and they tortured him. They replaced him with another bot who took his identity in political sense, and he wanted to redeem himself and to get his old body back. So even though the main character does plenty of bad things, he's a really bad person, even worse than Kazuya, but we still root for him because we know what he went through. We saw with his own two eyes, and we were his point of view. In similar vein, most fans of Tekken 1 or Tekken 4 would root for Kazuya because he's the main character. We see his suffering. We don't care who you are going to show at the last minute and say that this person has a really bad story. You should feel bad for him. This is not Bleach or something like that. This used to be one of the greatest storyline series of fighting games, though hardcore fans are going to get rabid about this. But yes, Tekken used to have the best storylines, and for a long while, well, second to Soul Calibur anyway. We're just going to pretend the other games, the later games never happened. But the more things went on, the more the author started to favor Heihachi, and you see how good that went. But there is still potential in the story. It felt like something was missing. We didn't see Kazuya's side of the story. Harada made him delusional. If he gets kicked in the head, he just say, "I am evil," or something like that. If he loses a tooth, he just says the same thing and laughs it off. It's a weird character. We never see his point of view or his suffering. We just see Heihachi's suffering and things like that. And that's why it feels like a propaganda machine. It is. You cannot call that literature. It's more like Starship Troopers level of totalitarian propaganda or something like that. Order creates everything, and that evil order guy ruling the world are good people and things like that. It's real weird. I think there is scope for improvement. I mean, Jean is too much of a cliche now, but don't make Lars the main character. But still buff Lars, I would agree about that. Well, let Lars defeat some of the powerful enemies and cosmic types, and let Lee Xiaolan get the protagonist role, and let Kazuya kill the main villain. Let Kazuya kill Jean, because no, Jean is a popular character, you can't kill him. But I would love a Tekken series where Kazuya wins the tournament and wins everything. It would be better than what we have seen so far. I mean, the story started with him, so it should be appropriate that the story ends with him. Well, that's my opinion, even though most fans wouldn't agree, and most fans would blame me that Tekken does not have a story. It does have a story, about it was made with drugs, or it was made by drugs, or something like that, but it does have a story. Used to have a story, which got ruined. So that's it.